Okay, we have taken a break from our intermediate coil pots. I'm going to take my coil pot that I've worked on so far out of my bag. It's still on my cardboard. It doesn't matter if the cardboard is curling up or not. We're just needing to have something to keep it from sticking to the table, and also so that we can move it easily. Before we get started, and before we continue to add to the height of our pot, I want to take a moment to talk to you about some different coiling techniques that you can do to add to your piece. So if we look at my piece from my 9th grade year of high school, you can see that I have a spiral coil that I've added. I have a simple sphere that I've added, and I've placed those kind of randomly throughout my piece. You're going to notice that whenever you put additions like that, that it changes the direction or the trajectory of the coils. And so you can see with this spiral here that after that my coils had to follow that line that was created. On the spheres, I just stopped and I started. So let's look for just a moment at how to create the simple spheres and the spirals. And you can actually create any shape that you want to with a coil. So you're going to pinch off a piece of your clay. Remember, we're keeping our clay in a bag so that it's not drying out. And I'm going to start my coil or a snake in my hands, but then I'm going to move to the table. And I'm using the palm of my hand. I'm not using my fingers. If you use your fingers, you're going to get these ripples. And I'm just trying to get a good, smooth coil that's about the same diameter all the way around. And when you are creating pieces to add into a coil, these are going to be smaller in thickness and diameter than what you would use to build the walls. Okay, so I think with this one I'm going to use maybe do a square idea, so maybe not something as round. And I automatically forgot my slip. That happens sometimes. And I'm just going to take a moment to add my scratch marks, my scoring. There we go. Okay, so with the spiral, I tried to keep it circular, but with the more of the square idea, I'm going to try to keep it, try to get it a little more where we get. And the thing about clay, there are some similarities to the weaving, is that you can manipulate the clay into the shape that you're wanting. Very similar to what we were doing when we were weaving with our weft, and how we could move the pieces up and down. We can kind of do the same with clay. So if I wanted it to be more of a square, I'm just going to flatten out the edges, okay? And then with this ending here, I'm going to take my finger and I'm just going to make the ending of this coil attach. So we've got a flat, square, rectangular coil. We have more of a rounded, circular coil. And then we have spheres. And the sphere, you're just going to pinch off some of your clay. And we've all done this. We've done this whenever we were little with our Play-Doh. And we're just gonna roll a ball and then put it over to the side. Okay, I have this long piece because I'm gonna show you one other way to add to your coil. So we're going to keep building our sides. And then I will show you how to add our extras. Get that a little more round as we're going. Okay. And if you are stopping and then starting again with your coil pot, which is fine, but you are going to have to understand that even within a bag that your clay is going to start hardening. So you have some time, but you do not have all the time in the world. It's a limited amount of time, especially based on where you are placing your pot. You know, if you're keeping it in a cool place in your house, away from heat or sunlight, that will definitely make a difference. If you set it in front of a window where the sun is going to hit it, it's going to start your drying process becoming leather hard. Okay, so once again, we are going to put the new coil with the old coil. You can see that my piece is more sturdy now. This base is not trying to move on me as much. Now that I have it was, I worked on the first part yesterday, and now today I'm coming back to continue the height of my walls. And that might be something that you consider, that if you are working with the clay and the base part is too floppy or flimsy, then you can just take some time where you put it in your bag, you let it sit so that it is easier for you to manipulate. There are many people who almost, as they're creating their coil pots, they make mini coils and they just have them laying out to the side, and then they just pick them up and they just go. And that's fine if that's something that you're wanting to do. I personally do not like doing that, just because I don't like it when it starts drying. To me, when it starts cracking, it becomes more difficult to deal with. So I prefer to coil and roll as I go. Now you might be looking and saying, oh, I see those markings. Well, they're needed. They're needed to, attach your coils, but you can go back and smooth some of that out. So let's say that I'm kind of at this point where I've ended a coil and now I'm wanting to add some of my specialty coils to start a design. So I have finished this coil just by blending it in with the coil underneath, and I've done that on the inside, the outside, and then here on the top. And then if you are wanting to start your design, then you would create the coil shape that you were interested in, and then you're going to attach it the same way that we've been attaching the coils. So you're going to add your slip, you're going to score, because we're creating a Velcro idea for the clay to attach, and then you're going to slip and score the spiral, and then you're going to attach it to your coil. Now, right now, first of all, this is still wet clay. It is hasn't started the drying process yet, and you also do not have any supports around the spiral, so it is going to be flimsy. You're just going to be very careful with it until you build the coils around it that are going to support it. And I think that I'm going to add another coil on this side. There are so many different ideas when you're creating clay, and maybe you have a clear idea of what you're kind of wanting to create, and maybe you're just coming up with your idea as you go. Just like our many of the different pieces that we've talked about this summer, there can be asymmetrical coil pots that are not the same all the way around, not the same width or dimension even. The coils could be different, and you can have very symmetrical ideas. It really just is so up to you and what you're wanting to create, what you're wanting to express. Making sure that's attached on the inside as well as the outside. And so now I have a spiral, and then I've continued with my coil, and I'm going to go around And we'll stop at the spiral again, and I'll show you some of the options that we have. We're getting close to that. You can create your vessel, your coil vessel going straight up. You can make it go in and out. You can have it going out on this side and in on this side. That would be creating the asymmetry. So many options. I know that maybe the slip and the scoring seems cumbersome. I have had students who have created a coil pot, and I can literally go by where they are and lift sections of coils off because they did not attach them correctly. So please just, take the time to attach so that it doesn't fall apart on you. Okay, so now my coil is back over to the spiral detail that I added. I could come up and around, leaving an air opening here if I wanted that to be part of the design, and it would actually look that way on both sides. I could stop my coil and attach it to the spiral here. Or I could make my coil go down and fill in that space so that there's not any openings. I'm gonna actually leave that airspace. This is not, I'm not trying to hold water with this, and so it's going to be fine to have that opening there. If you pinch off some of your clay and you make your coil and it's not the width or diameter that you need, then just get some more, add it, and try again. Don't forget, whenever you're joining two coils to each other, that you are melting, what I call melting them into one, so you cannot see where it stops and where it begins. And if your clay is moving, remember to just support with one hand while you're working with the other. What if you are joining your coils and you make some of your coil disappear, like the lines? Well, you can go back with your toothpick and give that definition there. on the inside of this piece, you can see the lines, but they're not as perfectly coiled on the inside as they are on the outside. You can actually feel the texture on the outside of this piece, and on the inside it's more smooth. So you can hand build with coils and then actually get rid of the coil if you want. Okay, I'm gonna come back around. And then I want to show you one more technique that you can do with a coil. Okay, so this is our coil pot. It is a medium size. It's about half of my example. And you could keep building up, but this is a really good size for intermediate, upper elementary age. So I have this then coil that I made earlier, and another technique that you could do anywhere in your coil piece would be to manipulate or make the coil move as a line. So if you wanted to have the coil, and you can see that just by leaving it out until I was ready to do this part, that it's already starting to dry. You can make little details like wavy lines. You could add this to make zigzag lines if you were wanting to. And the idea would be to attach it the same as what we've been doing with any of our other coil pieces. So you're going to attach it, and then anytime the clay is touching another part of the clay, then you're going to score it and add the slip. Like so. And then you would bend this up again. Score the underside. And you would continue that coil all the way around. If you were continuing to build the height of your coil pot, then you could actually follow this pattern, this line pattern within your piece, very similar to what we did to the spiral. And you could continue, and it would start making the lines of your coils follow a new pattern. It is easier to manipulate your coils, once again, when you have first rolled them. So it's not going to be as easy to form this, especially if you wanted this to be rounded. It's not going to be as easy once your coil starts to dry out. But that is how you would add more of a wavy, curvy line design to your coil pot. What would it look like? I guess I should finish this. I get so excited. And if you have a piece that's being finicky or it's trying to tear on you, I've just added some of my slip, kind of like this piece right here. And I'm just going to come in, and the slip with the clay in it, and this really hasn't developed very much. It would be much more, it would have much more of a clay residue at the bottom, but it acts like a glue. So anytime that you're having a difficult time with your clay, your slip is what's you're gonna come back to, and it's gonna help you out. Okay, so you can see how you could add a wavy coil to your piece. Okay, it could be decorative or it could be inlaid to your design. And then how would we add these spirals? Well, you've already formed your your sphere, and you're going to do the same thing that we've been doing with our other pieces. You're just going to score, add some of your slip, and you're going to do that to the piece that you're joining it to and the object. Like so. I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to put these back in my baggie so they don't dry out with the air. And I'm going to have to be very careful. I'm not going to be able to grab up here because I've added this part to my piece. But I'm going to come down here to the base that we worked on the other day and the first coil. And I'm going to take a moment, and I'm going to, using a little bit of slip, because it's not leather hard yet, but it is starting the drying process. And I'm going to make the first coil and my base become one. And this is just going to make my base even stronger, and it's going to make sure that during the drying process and then during the heating process within the kiln that they are not separating and coming apart. And as I work my way around my piece, I'm going to get back to where it originally started. There are potters, ceramic artists who continue this all the way up. They actually get rid of their coils. That is an option, but for our sake, we're going to keep our coils, our lines that we've created. And I'm just using the extra that's building up on my thumb. I'm actually using that. And I'm applying pressure, but I'm also supporting with this other hand. As I'm turning. Okay, so now I can go back, and if the scoring bothers me on these outside coils, if I got carried away, which it looks like I did some, then you're just going to take your finger and come back and smooth some of that out, okay? You're going to use your finger, you're going to dip it into your slip, and you're just going to smooth some of those score marks out. And if your lines get muddy, then you can come back and you can add that line mark again. And it looks like some of my coils have cracked while I was working with this wavy line up here. So you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to come back, take your slip, you're going to use your finger. And notice that whenever I'm doing this, I'm not like squeezing my pot. I'm holding carefully, I'm supporting. None of my coils are moving. They're not falling apart because of the pressure I'm adding. So yes, you're applying pressure, but you're not pressing so hard to where you're collapsing your piece. So just coming back, smoothing out our coils, taking care of any cracks. what if you're doing this and you didn't draw a design, you didn't really know where you were going with this coil pot, you just started, you were so excited and you just started, and you've added this top piece and now you're looking at it and you're like, I'm not really sure I like that. Well, take it off. Take it off. Take your fingers and go back and smooth out where you added them, where you put them together, and either continue with your regular coils or just be finished where you are. Okay, so we have smoothed out some of our score marks, and I could actually come with my toothpick in some of these areas and just kind of make sure that it's smooth if I can't get to it with my finger. Come back and make sure that that is really bonded correctly. If it's not bonded correctly, it's going to pull apart. We do not want that. Okay, I'm gonna look now and see that some of them are kind of fingerprinty, and I do want to see, except for on this bottom, I want to be able to see that these are coils, that this was a hand-built with coil piece. So I'm just going to come back, even though I've smoothed out some of these areas, just going to come back with my wonderful toothpick and show those line marks. Okay, so what happens now? What is the next step in this piece? Well, we have to let this dry. So it needs to be sitting on the cardboard that was provided for you, and this is going to dry until it is completely finished drying by air, and then we're going to be able to fire it. Once this piece is fired, then we are going to decide if you want to keep it in a terracotta brown fired state, or if you want to glaze it with a set of glaze colors that we have purchased. We're gonna let this dry. I'm gonna set this over to the side and we're gonna let this dry. And then we will come back in about a week or so and revisit this piece and go on from there.